Simplicity for Success by Withered Rose. As of late, the phrase critical race theory (CRT) has been in frequent circulation in American politics. President Trump started to use the phrase at the end of his term. A Space Force officer was discharged for criticizing CRT, and last week, the week of May 17, 2021, Texas moved to ban the teaching of CRT in public schools. If you are old enough, you may remember a similar phenomena in the 2010s when Andrew Breitbart took it upon himself to warn American conservatives about cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism and critical race theory are one and the same hermeneutic developed by the Frankfurt School, a group of Western Marxist theoreticians that included, most notably, Theodor Adorno, Jürgen Habermas, Herbert Marcuse and Max Horkheimer. Reading such works as One-Dimensional Man, Marcuse, or Culture Industry, Adorno and Horkheimer, can be an eye-opening experience for those on the dissident right, as to steal an insight from a certain Southern gentleman. The critiques of capitalism and globalism found in these works are almost identical to dissident right critiques. Rather than drawing attention to the surplus labor stolen by the employer from the employee, as Marx does, the Frankfurt School concentrated the bulk of their critique at how capitalism destroys cultures and identities. Sound familiar? Is not a standard dissident right critique of capitalism that it tears apart the family by removing labor from the household. The husband worked the fields as the wife knit, sewed and made products such as butter, and reallocated it to the factory, thus separating the family during the day. Is not another standard critique that capitalism tends to reduce authentic culture to mere consumerism? Well, these Marxists made such critiques before most, if not all, the dissident right figures were born. CRT is a complex phenomenon and can be amiable to some dissident right convictions, and it is this complexity that obfuscates things. CRT's complexity does not matter and only adds confusion, or at least for political purposes. Given universal suffrage, the language and concepts in politics must be digestible to the common man. It is not a slight against the common man, nor a defect in him, to recognize that he cannot be expected to comprehend anything approaching Marcuse. Many readers here may not have read much of the Frankfurt School. If I am being honest, the only work by this cabal that I have read in its entirety has been Culture Industry, apart from this, selections of One-Dimensional Man, and Reason and Revolution, but not much else. If the common man has never read, nor has either the time or capacity to do so, the works of CRT, then why would Republican politicians waste their breath? As of yet, I have not heard one politician or Fox News host give a easily comprehensible description of CRT that is also short enough to keep the masses' attention. Andrew Breitbart came close to this, but he felt compelled to give the history of the Frankfurt School every time he spoke of cultural Marxism. History is not a bad thing, and is key to understanding why CRT came to be, but it does not have much of a home in universal suffrage politics. Politicians who take a stand against CRT are in the right, for the theory is corrupting, but they need to make the message accessible to common man. Simplicity is needed for success. In the rare case that any politicians or someone close to a politician or two is reading this, which is the case, and if said politicians feel called to take up the fight against CRT, then I have the following recommendations. Do not use the phrase critical race theory. It is too big and too confusing for your constituency. Instead, say, our children are being taught to be ashamed for being American, to feel guilty because they are white, and are told they are intolerant and wicked for having Christian beliefs. Unlike the rhetoric of CRT, this wording, or wording similar to it, is personal as it tells of our children being under attack for who they are. It is not the impersonal language of some academic idea thought up by some weird Germans living in California 50 years ago. 2. Emphasize over and over again that the public schools are promoting anti-white racism and anti-Christian discrimination. These two phrases are short, sweet, and to the point. Not a soul in America does not understand what these words mean. Some will deny anti-white racism or anti-Christian discrimination exists, but even if they do, they know what the words mean. 3. If you can, or if someone can do it for you, compile a handful of lesson plans or quotes from required reading textbooks that are anti-white, anti-American and anti-Christian. Always have example of what you are talking about, and make sure these examples speak for themselves, do not require any contextual explanation. Common man does not have the time nor attention span, and make sure they are as explicit and brutal as possible to stir up maximal indignation. My hope is that Republicans keep on fighting CRT, but if they want to be successful at all, then they need to stop using the phrase critical race theory, and instead, hammer hard the fact that our public schools are anti-white, anti-American and anti-Christian. Most Democratic voters, keep in mind, are not these things and will be equally repulsed by it if it was brought to their attention, intelligently. 1. I am thinking here of how traditional European dress was replaced by jeans and a branded T-shirt, leading to a global, American, culture.